You're listening to On Purpose with Aisha Cogborn. Inspirational conversations with people bold enough to pursue their dreams. What can you learn from their journey to create your best life? Here's your host, Aisha Cogborn.
Welcome back to our regular listeners. And if this is your first time tuning in, I'm so glad you're here. And one of the reasons I started this podcast is that I'm blessed to have some amazing and wildly successful people in my personal network. And today, you're going to get to meet one of them. But I know that's not everybody's story. Some of you feel like you're on an island all by yourself with your dreams, like nobody gets it, or they simply don't believe that you have what it takes to make your dreams a reality. It's my prayer. It is my prayer that you find your tribe of people who believe in you, people who can share their wisdom with you, people who will inspire you. But until you do, you can borrow my people, all right? So I want to let you in on the intimate stories of success and failure that I talk about all the time with my entrepreneurial friends. Because if you haven't figured it out yet, life as a business owner isn't always as shiny and pretty as it is on Instagram. One of the greatest injustices that we put ourselves through is to compare our play-by-play to everybody else's highlight reel. On Purpose with Aisha Cogborn wants to provide you with a more complete picture of what it's like to follow your dreams, not to scare you, but so that when you do face those challenges, you're not going to get caught off guard by it, or you're not going to think that there's something wrong with you, like you're not cut out for this. It just comes with the territory. And if you are in the midst of a challenge right now, I want this show to remind you that you're not alone. It's all a part of the process, but you will get through this. And I hope that On Purpose with Aisha Cogborn will be a tool in your arsenal to make this journey a little bit smoother. And I'll tell you, I'm all about making the journey smoother for people. That's one of the reasons that I became a coach. That's one of the reasons that I write. That's one of the reasons that I speak. I want to see people's lives change for the better. I want to see you get there faster and easier than I did. Learn from my mistakes. Learn from the mistakes of those that you'll hear their stories here on this show so you can do it faster and easier. And in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to introduce a new resource to help you make that journey a bit smoother. So it's going to be a free weekly resource guide delivered right to your inbox. So you don't have to forget, maybe you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet and you've been missing some episodes, or, I certainly know everybody has a life. So you're not seeing every post or every article that I put out there on social media. So I want to make this easy for you, sharing that goodness that's going to make this road a little smoother for you. So you don't want to miss out. How do you get it? This is how you get it. Go to our show webpage at onpurposepodcast.com. That's onpurposepodcast.com. You'll see the box there to sign up, and it will come right to you. And if you have questions that you want answered, you can let us know what your questions are, your challenges are, and we will address them not only through that weekly resource guide, but maybe even here on the show. So now on to our conversation. So today we are joined by my friend and mentor, Jane Spicer. She's the CEO of Daphne's Headcovers. Now, if you're not familiar with golf, you might be saying, Aisha, what's a head cover? Well, they're literally the covers that protect golf clubs. So if you've you said you're not familiar with golf if you're asking me what a head cover is. So you might not know that golf clubs are very expensive. So Jane's company which she started with her mom, pioneered these furry animal head covers. And if you ever turn on the TV and watch PGA golf, you're going to see her head covers in the bags of many of those professional players, including Tiger Woods and Bubba Watson. Now, Jane started her journey into entrepreneurship at the tender age of, get this, 10 years old. She started a business at 10 years old. And she started out making puppets to save up for a sailboat. Well, today she's at the helm of a multi-million-dollar global manufacturing corporation with customers in more than 70 countries. But Jane has also had her share of challenges. In our conversation, she talks about overcoming shyness, the struggle to find her place as a CEO and a parent, and a personal tragedy that made her want to walk away from it all. Plus, we're going to get into some of the nuts and bolts of something that she found very critical to growing her business. That's implementing systems. That's how she grew a sustainable business. And if you think you're too busy to do it, which is the reason that lots of us haven't done it, then more than anybody, you need systems. And she's also going to talk about why what she didn't know may have been one of her greatest assets in business. Here's Jane Spicer. When you started your business, you were literally a baby. I mean, when I was 10, I was thinking about, coming home and watching my favorite cartoons and drinking a juice box, and you were running a business. How did that even happen?
That's correct. When I was 10, I asked my mom, Daphne, our company's namesake, for a sailboat. And she said, Jane, think of a business and earn it yourself. And so I said, well, how about if we make toys for Christmas? And my mom was amazing and said, okay, I'll teach you how to sew and let's do some designing. And I started making toys and going up and down the street, selling them to friends and neighbors. And I sold in front of grocery stores until they'd ask me to leave. And eventually I bought a little 16-foot sailboat on a trailer with what I'd done, with that first business.
How long did it take you to save up the money to buy the boat?
It took me probably about 2 years.
So thinking back to childhood, because children are notoriously accused of being impatient. How did you stay focused on that goal long enough to save that money?
I think that's a great question, and I stayed focused a couple different ways. We kept my money in Folgers coffee cans. And so I really liked that I was getting more and more coffee cans as I was accumulating. I can't remember what we would consider, the right amount to surrender a can. And my mom and I would just, any information we could devour about sailboats, we would devour. So she kept my passion alive. And the passion came, she was British. And even though we lived here in the desert, I grew up reading stories about smugglers and sailing and things. So we continued to read those stories. And if there was a boat show, we would go and look at all the little boats. So I realized that she kept my passion and interest going, by those things. And every now and then she'd say, okay, let's see how you've done. Are you progressing? And, now you bought the mast and now you bought the boom. And okay, soon you'll have bought this, as we dug through our Folger cans. So she did a variety of things to keep it in motion, because I'm sure otherwise, I know without her I would have been completely distracted.
That's such a valuable lesson, even for adults. I mean, when we set goals for our business, whether it's an earnings goal or, hitting a certain, customer number or, leaving our full-time jobs, whatever that is, it can seem so out of reach. But to immerse yourself in the experience of reaching the goal, that's an amazing tool to keep you focused.
Oh, it did, absolutely. And I also thought of the other thing is we began to work on, because we were going to be pirates, so we actually worked on how to swear like pirates. So it became kind of our whole obsession. And I look back and I realize it was her way of keeping me interested. But everything was piratical, and it was really, really, really a lot of fun.
So how did you progress from making toys to making head covers for golf clubs?
We did the toys. I bought the sailboat, and after I bought the sailboat, I realized I really liked making my own money. That gave me, I didn't have to ask. I didn't have to ask to get gum at the store or to do anything because I had my own money, and that was power and freedom. So I made toys for a little while longer, and then they morphed into puppets, and we began selling them at arts and crafts shows. So I would go on the weekends and sell them. And it was at one of those arts and crafts shows where somebody suggested that we make puppets. And by then I was almost 16. Somebody suggested that we make golf club covers. And then I was almost 16, and my mom bribed me. And she said, I tell you what, if you sell enough of these head covers, I'll buy you a car. I was like, oh gosh, that I am in. I want a car. That's awesome. If I earned a sailboat at 10, I can earn a car. And so that's how it started.
And what was so now you're making something brand new. You've gotten accustomed to making puppets. What was the first step in figuring out how to make this new product?
We went to a couple golf shops and kind of looked around and, kind of got an idea about golf club covers. And then we figured out that they needed elastic to stay on. And then we looked up golf terms. We weren't golfers, and we learned that birdie, eagle, and bogey were golf terms. So we made a birdie, an eagle, and we knew a bogey was a bad thing. So we made kind of a scary head cover. So we did that, and then we morphed some of our designs. We had a beaver and a koala, and that we had already done, and we morphed their body shapes into the golf club covers, and we just made enough to fit in. I'd gone to the Goodwill, and I bought 2 sample boxes, and that were really fancy. They were fancy patent leather hat boxes, and we just made enough samples to fit into those boxes. It's kind of like a fisherman who only keeps the fish that fit in the frying pan. We made enough samples to fit in our sample boxes, and once we did that, we figured it was a complete line.
And so what was the next step to actually going to market?
I went to the Arizona Biltmore Country Club in Phoenix, and I talked my way in. I went to the golf shop, and all the pros had their pictures on the wall, and the highest picture had the name Pete on it. And so I said in my most confident voice, "I'm here to see Pete." And I think they must have thought I was either his kid or something. So they took me back and let me into his office. And then I went in and I gave Pete, who was the director of golf, a very kind man, I gave him my best sales pitch. And when I got done, he looked at me and he said, I'm going to tell you 3 things. 1, that is the worst sales pitch I've ever heard in my life. 2, I'll buy your head covers. They're great. And 3, I'm going to give you some selling points because I think these can sell, but you need some polish. And that was the first sale of Daphne's head covers.
And was your mom in the room with you when you were making your pitch?
Nope, I went by myself.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so I went by myself. And I know now that what I didn't know really helped me because I didn't realize what I was doing. That you don't go and demand to see the director of golf, and you don't go without an appointment. And really, none of that matters. I mean, we always put about how you're supposed to do things properly, and my ignorance really allowed me to open a whole lot of doors and do a lot of other things that people wouldn't do because I just simply didn't know any better. And all I knew was I had to sell a certain amount of head covers to get a car.
I absolutely love that because there are so many people, and I see this a lot with the people that I work with who are, transitioning from one area of expertise to another. Maybe you were in HR or you were in supply chain and now you're starting a jewelry business. And it's like, what am I, who am I to be starting a jewelry business? I know nothing about this. I know nothing about how to market this product or what people are, whatever it is. And they get so hung up on what they don't know that they forget the things that play to their advantage. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later when we get into our rapid fire at the end and the tail of the tape. But one of the things that could have been seen as a disadvantage for you was your youth, but you used that to your advantage.
Yeah, and I did, and not knowingly. When I look back at all the things I didn't know, I'm so grateful that I didn't know them, because I just had a lot of enthusiasm. I knew one thing. I wanted a car, and that was it. I knew I wanted it. And so I can proudly say I've been kicked out of all the finest golf resorts in Arizona. When I would arrive without an appointment, they'd say, or you don't have an appointment, or you're 16. You're not a sales rep. And I'd say, yes, I am. And I'd open my case and I go, I'm selling animal head covers. And they'd say, that's not a product. It is now. It isn't. So, they would ask me to leave. And, some of the properties were a little bit more exclusive than they are now. And I'd basically kind of be escorted off the property. Then I'd drive around to the back, to the entrance where the kitchen is. And then I'd walk through there, and I just learned if I said hi to everybody was so kind to me. And I'd just say, hi, hi, hi. And they all thought I was somebody else's kid. And then I'd wind my way through, and then I'd eventually figure out where the golf shop was, and I'd walk right back in and go in and talk to them, go, hi, I'm here, I have many say, well, what will it take for you to not come? And I said, well, then you just need to buy something. Just buy something. It doesn't have to be a lot. And many times they would. I mean, sometimes I think they liked the design. I think sometimes they were being kind. And I think sometimes they were hoping that if they bought 2 head covers that I'd go away, and didn't think I'd follow through and deliver and collect on the bill. I think my enthusiasm helped, and my lack of knowledge, made me very brave, because I didn't know that most of the things I was doing really shouldn't be done.
Where do you think your bravery came from?
My bravery came from my mom and my grandfather. My grandfather was an amazing, amazing man, very, very kind, very successful. And I remember sitting with him one day in the garden in England, and we were looking at our pulses. And we all have the same blood type. And he said, well, we all have the same blood type, but here's our second blood type. And he was touching one of my veins. And he said, see that? And I didn't see anything. And he goes, that's fortitude. And he said, we have fortitude running through our veins. And he said, but it's a secret. So if you tell the doctor or a nurse you have fortitude running through your veins, they're going to look a little puzzled, because they don't have it and they don't know. But it's in there. And whenever you're afraid, and it's okay to be afraid, or whenever you're just, something's just so hard, you just have to think very clearly that you have fortitude running through your veins. And I remember his kind of arthritic hands just touching my wrist and going, it's in there. And I promise you that it's part of our DNA. You have fortitude. So I don't know how many times I tapped into that until I took a later science class and found out that they said something different. And I remember thinking, I'm going to keep that. I called him Grandpoo. Okay, Grandpoo, you're right. I've got fortitude. So the fortitude running through my veins, and my mom would say all the time, be brave, whatever it was, be brave. So just kind of some mantras early on. So I was very, very blessed to have those thoughts implanted in me, and really believing that fortitude was implanted in me.
Wow. I mean, that really reinforces the importance of what we speak over our children, our grandchildren, the people around us, because they absorb so much of it, and it can really make a difference in what they go on to do based on the level of confidence we've put in them, or what we said to them. And even, I think sometimes as parents, we can say things very flippantly and not know the impact of those words. And I've tried to become a lot more conscious of it, even with now as I look at, my siblings' grandchildren, so my great nieces and nephews, and, where somebody may say something, joking like, oh, she's going to be a terror. No, don't say that. Don't speak that over that child.
Oh, I agree with you. Our words are so powerful. And I don't think that means that we should sugarcoat everything. Like I'm not for everybody, you get a trophy because you're on the team.
No.
We're all to be celebrated, for sure. But whatever it is that we have, what do we have? Are you funny? Are you kind? Are you smart? And to have that implanted, and for me, it was deeply implanted that I had a store of bravery that was always there, even if I didn't know it was there. They gave me the guarantee that there was braveness in there. And, that's a gift that I'll always treasure. And I tell my kids, and of course, they're, logical and say, well, we really don't have fortitude running through our veins. It's like, well, actually now when you look at the generations and the amazing things our family has done, yes, we do. Yes, we do. And you have it too. So it's important that we continue those powerful words and messages that yes, you can, and you've got what you need inside to do whatever it is you want to do.
Yes, that is so important. At what point did you realize, okay, this little business of mine, I got something here, and I can grow this into something even better?
Oh, that took a long time to sink in, really. I bought the car, which was awesome. And I continued selling the head covers through high school and, through college, basically for beer money in college. And my mom was, the really amazing things about Daphne's head covers were done by my mom, the foundation, the hard thinking and those things. And, I think when I got out of college, I went on the road for about 6 years building the company. And when I came off the road and realized I had enough business, I always knew I was in business, but it was kind of what I did and not what it was. And then when I came off the road and was hiring people and things, I think I started to realize, like, hey, this was, and I bought a building and a warehouse, and it was like, hey, I've got this. This is a legitimate business. There's like people clocking in. And so, but it took a long time because it was just who I was and it was just what I did. It was part of me and it was all consuming. I worked 7 days a week for 6 years. It was my everything. So I didn't see that it was anything, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Now, one of the things that I know about you now is that you still work very hard, but I also know that self-care is important for you. You make time for fun. You spend quality time with your children and with your friends. At what point did you say to yourself, okay, enough of this working, 80 hours a week. I need to infuse some life into this too. When did you know that was okay?
I had two different points. And when that happened, one was a very sad point. My mom was diagnosed with a brain tumor when I was pregnant with my son. And she sat me down and said, no more working 7 days a week. You have got to take weekends off, and you're going to have my grandchild. And we both worked like that. So don't continue that way. You need to start taking weekends off. And that was so weird for me because I hadn't taken, arts and craft shows when I was traveling. They were on the weekends when I was on the road. So I'd always worked. And Lionel Richie had that song, Easy Like Sunday Morning. I never, ever knew what he was talking about.
I didn't either. I just didn't get it.
I didn't get it. Sundays were the big days at the arts and craft shows. They were huge. I was up at 3 a.m. and going. So that was the first time when she said that, and I started to take weekends off. And then as my son started to get into sports and kind of get his own but his own life and his schedule, that had a huge impact on me. The absolute joy of watching him. He sailed competitively and, getting in a little sailboat and going sailing and doing the arrangements for it and getting him to practice and looking forward to something that was different from my focus, going, wow, I've got to have him on the water at 3:00. And this was in a different state. So we'd commute to San Diego, and the organization that went into it, and having that switch going, okay, so on the weekend, I'm a sailing mom, and then I'm a CEO during the week. I started to look around and go, this is really good for me, running on the beach, enjoying my son. But it didn't sink in for a long time that doing these different things would actually make me better at my career.
Were there ever any moments where when you're out being sailboat mom, that you felt like you should have been somewhere else doing something else to build the business, or times when you were doing things to build the business where you felt that you should have been giving more to your family?
Oh, absolutely. I was constantly torn. So, am I a CEO or am I a mom? Am I a mom or a CEO? And one day I was really whining to one of my mentors, and she just hit me between the eyes, Aisha, and she said, shut up. You're both. You are both all the time. And sometimes you're going to be an excellent CEO and a marginal mom. And other times you're going to be an excellent mom and a marginal CEO. Move forward in this messy life and know that you're both, but don't worry about which you are. Just keep moving forward, doing the best that you can. You're going to drop some balls and you're going to pick some up. Move forward with joy and stop worrying about which one you are, and stop worrying about being torn, because you're both. And that released me from so much.
Yeah, and I think about some of the expectations that we create for ourselves. Where did those even come from? You've got to have a hot dinner that you cooked yourself on the table every night, and your house has to be immaculate. And who decided that this is what a good mom looks like? Where did that even come from? Probably a man.
Probably, yeah. Probably a man in a TV show.
Right.
I've never been the one who was, standing at the door in my high heels in a French maid's costume with a cocktail waiting for a man to come home. And, so I don't know where that image came from. And I love, Glennon Doyle, the author who wrote Love Warrior, who just talks about how, life is messy. And some days it's peanut butter and jelly sandwich for dinner. And, other days it might be something better. But if you come together and say, okay, here we are, this is what we're doing, then that's okay. And that's what's important, is coming together in whatever space we're at the time, and allowing each other in. So one person's super tired, one person's super hungry, but hey, we're all together. And yes, once again, we're eating our dinner in our pajamas, and that's okay.
Yeah. I was just telling a friend of mine the other day, who's a single dad, and he was like, oh, I'm tired, and, I need to wash these dishes. I'm like, why? Who cares? If you leave dishes in the sink, is anybody's life going to come to an end if you're tired? Go to bed.
Good advice. Yeah.
So now take us back to, you coming off of the road after those 6 years, purchasing a building, hiring employees. Walk us into that factory and what life looked like for you and your family then.
It was really a pretty cool time. In everything I did, I always had a plan B. And so I bought a warehouse with a house in the front. And initially, we worked out of the warehouse, and I rented the house so that we were getting some income to pay the mortgage. So we'd collect the rent, and then we grew big enough that we could move. We moved the offices into the house. So all the filing cabinets were in the bathtub because there was extra space. And the fax machine and the phones were in the kitchen. Packing and shipping was in the dining room. And the living room was filled with the inventory. And I would get up every morning early, and I did this for a couple years. And I'd get up at sunrise, whatever that was in the season, and I'd go and climb Piestewa Peak every day. And then into the office I would go, and we would be, we were doing our manufacturing, so cutting and sewing was going on, calling customers, packing and shipping boxes. The days were very, very full. And I went in very, very comfy casual clothes because we use fake fur to make the head covers. So I was constantly covered with some type of thread or fur, or had packing tape stuck to me. We kind of go, this is what we need to do now. And then that would be my job at that point, whatever that now was. Is it dealing with customers? Am I helping packing and shipping with packing? So they'd just be very full days, and there was no extra time. So we always brought lunch to work and ate through it many times, working. I loved it. It was highly productive, very exciting, learning all the time, very messy. It was people would come into the office and it was chaos. They weren't beautiful offices where you'd come in and we'd wow you with a great lobby. We didn't have a lobby. Any extra space had the golf club covers in it, or, we utilized we figured, my mom would say, every space needs to work. So if it didn't have inventory or a sewing machine in it, it had a body standing there doing something.
You're in your 20s at this point.
Yes, I'm in my 20s at that point.
Running this company, people working for you, manufacturing a product, a woman, let's just say that, because there are still some people that don't see that as being something that a 20-something-year-old woman does.
Mm-hmm.
How did other people react to what you were doing?
I didn't see a lot of other people at that time because I worked so much. My close friends, I'm blessed with the best close friends on the planet. And they just cheered for me. They knew if they wanted to come and see me, they had to come where I was working. And they would come and bring me lunch, or, they'd stop by and see me. And, just kind of marvel bit by bit as things grew. Now what are you doing and where are you going? And sometimes, and they would come, my friends all got, beautiful corporate jobs, Aisha. So they would come over, especially my friend Lisa, impeccable dresser. She'd come over in her gorgeous black Jetta, in her great outfit, in her heels, and I'd have my Birkenstocks on. My hair would be standing on end, and, the sewing machines going and answering the phone and doing something else. And she'd say, okay, I brought lunch, or I brought dinner. And we would sit and discuss the day. And, so they were all doing this whole corporate thing. And I was probably more on the somewhere bohemian, hippie, out of control schedule side. And my close friends were super, super supportive and really celebrated it and boasted about it. And, if I was really tired, they go, look what you're building. Look at what you're doing. So my tribe celebrated me the whole way along. And I'm extremely grateful to them. And they're all still in my life.
Did you ever have times where you felt or wished that you had a simpler life?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. When I'd look and go, these people take the weekends off, and they go home at a certain time. The biggest thing for me was wondering what it was like to go home and shut your work life off, to just shut the door and be gone, because I never stopped thinking about it. And as I got more and more customers, I wouldn't shut the phone off. So, if the phone rang early in the morning and I was in bed, I picked it up and used my, best voice, good morning, Daphne's head covers, because I didn't want to miss an order. So, yeah, I looked and would think, wow, they get up and they dress really nicely in their super cool places. And of course, everything had overflowed. So everything was in my house too. And they super cute apartments. They go in their really nice outfits, and they'd arrive, at 8, and they'd leave at 5, and then they were done. And that seemed really pretty cool to me.
You got the business, the craziness, the working 7 days, fur everywhere, packing tape everywhere. At what point did things start to normalize for you?
I don't know. Gosh, normalized. I think it got even crazier before it got normal. We had a quarter where we grew. Daphne's head covers grew 400% in one quarter. I hold the copyright on the Tiger head cover that Tiger Woods carries. And so when he won the Masters the first time, my company grew 400% in 1 quarter. And then the madness went from madness to sheer insanity. And when we worked around the clock, had to buy a bigger building, got to buy a bigger building. And somewhere within that madness, I realized that if we didn't get some systems and organization in place, it was unsustainable. And that's a really, really hard thing to do for a business person, because you're like, look, when you're super busy, I'm not going to sit. I can pack 20 orders, or I can sit down and work on a system. But you're going to pack the orders. You're going to pack the orders because that's where your money comes from. And so, I had to make some conscious choices along the way. Okay, let's get some systems. Let's get some people that know what to do here. Let's get this so it is sustainable. And that was really, really hard for me to stop the motion to think about the systems so it was sustainable.
So tell us specifically about that process. Like, what did you do to get that process in place? Because this is something that I hear so much from people who are experiencing that success that didn't lay the groundwork. And to be honest, most of us don't lay the groundwork ahead of time because we don't even know what we're laying the groundwork for until it blows up in a good way. So when you found yourself in the middle of, I've got all these orders, what did you specifically do to get those processes in place in the midst of all of that good chaos?
The main thing is I don't like repetition. And after hiring, the seventh person and training them and telling them the exact same things, and then having them go, wait, what did you say? And repeating it. This is nuts. What about if I write it all down, stick it up on the wall so everybody can see? So if they forget, they don't have to ask for the piece of paper. And at that point, I brought some people in and said, okay, we called our packing. We still do our packing and shipping department, the zoo crew. It's a zoo in here. What do we do? And so I brought somebody from the outside in who knew systems. And they went through and talked about the systems, wrote them with the team, created them with the team, and then, as I said, laminated them and stuck them on the wall. So if you had a question, instead of me having to say the same things over and over, or coworkers, we just point to the wall. Okay, here's the system. And suddenly that department started to move smoothly. So it's like, okay, how do I do that in sales? How do we sell? What's our system? What are we discussing? What are we doing? So then we did it in the next department. And we did it bit by bit and realized that it saved a lot of repetition. And, why are we having the same discussion? Where can you go to look this up so I don't have to answer the same question 500 times? Because I haven't got time, and I'm not going to be fair to you as a coach if I don't have time, if I don't answer it. So I have to provide something. So bit by bit, we just wrote the steps out, and it was very, very primitive. I mean, write them and stick them on the wall. But it worked.
And your mom continued to be a very active part of the business. And one of the things that you often hear, and again, one of those things that I don't know where this comes from, but you'll hear people say that, family and business don't mix. Yet we've had, literally centuries of family businesses. But now all of a sudden people say, family and business doesn't mix. But what are some of the things that you and your mom did that allowed you to have a positive working relationship, but still have a very positive mother and daughter relationship?
We knew that we were partners through thick and thin, no matter what. It was always us. So she, as I said, she'd passed suddenly when I was 33 when she passed. But up until then, we worked together and we would fight, but we would have things where we would have a huge argument in the morning about some process or customer or some business thing, but we'd always have lunch together. So we would have that, I can't believe it. I'm so mad. I can't even see straight. And we have to do it this way. And are you nuts? And back and forth. But we knew. And in fact, she fired me several times. And I remember the first time she fired me, and she was so mad. And I screwed up an order with lambs. And I can't remember anything other than it was lambs. And she said, "You're fired." And I said, "I don't think you can fire me. This is my company too." And I went to walk outside. And I was like, "Okay, fine, I'm leaving." And she goes, "Where are you going?" And I said, "You fired me." She goes, this is your company too, and we don't have time for you to be fired. But you just fired me. She goes, do we have time? No. Okay. And then, and then I got back to work. So, okay. So, but it was that deep understanding. We had each other's back. She was very big about loyalty, and I'm here for you and you're here for me, period. And we can disagree. We will never disrespect each other. We can call each other out. If we do things, we get to be mad if we are. But that bond, it was like, this is us. This is who we are. And we are a team, period. And, if there were conflicts within the building or something was happening, she'd just say, blood is thicker than water. And then she'd say, but that doesn't mean that you can be stupid. So, it was just such a strong, loving bond that she really nurtured and guided. And, it was neat because we would have fights that would, could clear the room. And then we would come, we'd be eating lunch and people would come tiptoeing back in. And we never yelled, but we spoke with such intensity that, people would disappear and they'd come back in and we were eating lunch and joking and eating off each other's plates and talking about our next project.
Wow. Now, you talked about even in the beginning, she was the one that brought so much of the initial kind of business sense to Daphne's. So when she died, and, as you mentioned, you were a brand new mom. How did you then take on running this company without her, being a mom without her, and having to move forward?
Yeah, it was the most desperate point of my life. We have a family joke that the women in our family live to 100 and then they get hit by a bus. So for her to die early, she was only 62. None of us had the tools to deal with it. And my family's all overseas. So I felt terribly, terribly, terribly alone. And my son, quite frankly, my son was the reason I even survived, Aisha. I'd lost my best friend and my mentor, and my mom and my business partner, and my partner in crime. They were all gone. So, when I was missing my mom, I couldn't pick up the phone to call her. And then I think I need business advice. Well, person was gone. So I was in such a horribly desperate, dark place, but I knew I had to be there for my son. He was my saving grace. He was my saving grace. I had to go on. My mom wanted a grandchild so badly, and here he was. And I wasn't going to let him see the image of his mother crying all the time, which is what I was doing, was crying and wasting away. And I would have to remind myself to breathe and to function. And so I would go each day and try to make her proud by doing what I could at work and just looking at this amazing little boy saying, you know what? Okay, you need a mom. I know how it feels to have lost mine. You're not going to lose yours. And so I would just look at him every day and just make a commitment. And sometimes I could only make an hour-long commitment. Like, okay, we're going to live this hour well, because I didn't know if I could go any further. So I would live 1 hour well, and then I'd live the next hour well. And soon it got to be I could live a half a day well, and then a day, and bit by bit. And, the business got busier and busier, which turned out to be a really welcome distraction, because I had something to focus on that was still part of my mom. And that was hugely helpful. So I focused on what her loves would be, which would be, she'd want me to do well. She'd want her grandson well taken care of, and she'd want our business nurtured. So I felt like I was really honoring her. And in the process of honoring her, I was able to heal and to move forward.
What are some of the things that you learned about yourself, not only going through that experience, but just all of the mountaintops and valleys of building the business and even getting to where you are right now?
A little bit. It's a lot like what, when Christopher Robin said to Winnie the Pooh, and I won't get this exactly right, but you're stronger than you think, you're braver than you seem, and you're smarter than you know. When you're thrown into a situation, you have two choices. You can deal with it or not. And I dealt with situation after situation after situation, and each one of those built. And if I messed up really badly, I'd learned a lesson of what not to do, and that was super valuable. Or if I did really well, I'm like, oh, wow, I've got that. So I feel like life is building blocks, and you take a few steps up, and then some of them fall down, and then you do a few more, and then they fall down. So I realized that I likened it a lot. As you know, I'm a big hiker. I likened business to hiking. And when I hiked Piesta Peak every day, I'd get up super early in the morning, and some days I'd jump out of bed and I'd get there and I would run to the top and I'd run back down, and it was amazing. And I was amazing, and I was strong, and I was on fire and in love with the world. And other days I'd get up and my feet hurt when they touched the ground. I was like, ugh. And I would stagger up the mountain one foot after the other. I'd still do it, but it was a miserable experience all the way to the top. And you get to the top and go, who made this longer? How'd this get so darn high? And you come back down, and then it was done. And I think business is like that, with everything in between. So some days, you run up half the mountain and then you slog the next. But it's the continuing to do it, the will to go on every day, whether it's that hard day or it's the fabulous day, knowing that you're going to get up and do it again and again and again, and you're not going to stop because that's what you do. Then it helps you. It certainly helped me to realize, you'd have those days you wake up and go, oh, this is going to be a rough one, but I wasn't going to stop. And I knew that I'd always make progress. So allowing for those days, and knowing that I would push through no matter what, really helped me. And the life lessons of having really, really rough times and getting through them showed me that, the harder time you have, you realize that other things are luxuries. Like right after my mom died, one of my friends was completely complaining because she'd had a really bad haircut. And I was thinking and she did have a bad haircut. And it was like, what a luxury. Your hair will grow back. I'll never get my mom back. What a luxury that we get to complain about the traffic, or that we forgot lunch, or that this supplier was late. And it put things into perspective about what we complain about and what we should celebrate. And most of the things that we complain about just aren't that bad. They're just not that bad.
Yeah, that is so true. So, perspective. I was reading something somebody posted the other day on Facebook, and we're talking about some of the great things that were going on in her life that she hadn't really talked about lately, because she had just gone to the morgue with her friend who was preparing to bury her mother. And then they went and got Frosties from Wendy's or something like that. And it's just perspective on all of the things that we deal with and we think are so horrible. And I often remind myself of, I don't know if you saw the movie The Hangover. I love goofy movies, and I loved The Hangover. And I always think of what is his name, like Mr. Chung, or I don't know, I can't remember what his name was. And he was driving really crazy, and they get out of the car and they're complaining about how bad he's driving. But did you die?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I often remind myself in the middle of those situations is like, but I'm still here. But did it kill you? No. It sucked really bad, but it didn't kill me. And then the next thing I immediately try to do is, okay, so what's the lesson in it? What did I learn from it? How did this make me stronger? What can I extract from this situation that can help somebody else? And I think just being able to contextualize things with purpose. No, this horrible thing didn't happen to make me stronger necessarily, but I will be stronger because of it. And good will come because of it. So how do I get to that good part so the sucky part of it doesn't suck so bad?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of my dearest friends has a scale. And when something's happening, she says on a scale of 1 to 10, when she's in a situation, what are my chances of dying? And then in that same situation, in a scale of 1 to 10, how afraid am I? So she had a rat stuck in her dryer vent. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, in scared, she was like at a 9. Am I going to stick my hand in there? Am I going to get bitten? Is he suffering? Can I get him out? But on a scale of 1 to 10, was she going to die? You're not going to die from a pack rat in your dryer vent. And so she was able to go, okay, I'm going to acknowledge that I'm really terribly frightened and squeamish, but I'm not going to die. So I can deal with this. And I use that scale and that example many, many times when you're going, okay, look, this, now this one I might die and I'm scared. Okay, how do I handle this? But it puts things into perspective. And every time we're knocked down, every time we're defeated, anytime anything's hard and we survive, we get that. We get that experience to go, oh, the next time, oh, that's not so bad, because I had something much worse happen to me. And I don't wish anything bad to happen upon anybody, but the bad things that have happened to me have made me strong and resilient.
Yes, and resilience is definitely one thing that is required in entrepreneurship. I just don't know how anybody can survive without it.
No, there's no way. There's no way. You have to be resilient, and you have to get up and do it again and again and again. And you have to hear people say, that won't work. You can't do it. It's not going to happen. Why don't you get a real job? Are you crazy? Why don't you, how can you leave your real job? You have to listen to all those things, and you still have to make allowance for their doubting. But you have to go, what, I'm doing this, and still now with Daphne's as a global company, if I say to somebody who is not a golfer, if I say very simply, I make animal head covers, they have no idea what I'm talking about. They think I make hats for dogs. They're like, oh. And then if they do a little research, they're like, whoa. Yeah. Wow. What do you do? So, I've got this level of success and this track record behind me. But I still kind of chuckle now because every entrepreneur does that. And you have got to be resilient in every single way and believe in your dream and push forward and not stop and just not stop. It's resiliency has to be what runs through your blood.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this track record now. We spent some time in the valley. Now let's go on back up to this mountaintop. So yes, you run a global company. Your product is sold in 75 countries. You have more than 200 PGA professionals carrying your product. And one of the things that really intrigues me about that is, there's this now, since social media, particularly Instagram, has really blown up, you have all of these brands who want to pay these influencers to promote their product, to use their product, to be seen with their product. And you were doing this before it was a strategy that anyone was doing, but it was very organic for you. So how did you build those relationships where folks like Tiger Woods and Bubba Watson are using your products?
I'd like to say it was all sheer brilliance and an amazing marketing plan. Some of it was just complete luck, being out there, building a quality product that people chose. That was really part of it, where it's, these guys are paid to carry everything. And then they get a head cover that really, truly worked, that really protected their clubs, or that they identified with, Tiger, obviously with a tiger. And so some of it just came from being everywhere, being the girl that I would go to the 5-star resorts, when I was 16, and I'd also go to the discount golf shops. There was nobody that was above or beneath Daphne's head covers. It was just, please buy my head covers. So being out there, our quality got to be known, and that was really huge. And then, one player would get them, and we'd thank them, and I'll watch TV, and you'll see something. Now I've got a staff that's out there doing those things, but saying, hey, thank you, I really appreciate this. This means a lot to me. Being approachable and being grateful. One pro would tell another, and it just grew on the PGA Tour, the LPGA Tour, the Champions Tour, Cactus Tour, the whole way along. So it's really neat because, like if you're out with your girlfriends and somebody has something like, hey, where'd you get that? I'd like that. And, if they call in, we're passionate about customer service. So whether you're the agent of a famous golfer, you're a famous golfer, or you're somebody who saw it, you're going to be treated the same way and with love and respect. And that's really helped us develop and allowed me to develop a lot of personal friendships with these players that have blossomed into so many other things.
As you started really building the export side of the business, and you received an award recently here in Arizona for being the top woman-owned exporting company here. How did you learn how to do business globally? I mean, there are people who go to business school to learn this. You learned on the job. So what were some of the big lessons that you learned in that have allowed you to succeed there?
I have a tendency to ask. One of my dear friends, Sharon, says I interview everybody. And I never realized this. She's a marriage family therapist. So, of course, she'd identify the behaviors. But I've always done that. I'm always really interested in what people do. So when somebody said they wanted to order something overseas, I'd say, okay, how do I ship it to you? What do I do? I was never afraid to ask the questions, and I was never afraid to appear like I knew what I was doing because I was so well aware that I didn't. If somebody said, you don't know what you're doing, I'd say, that's right. My passion for the order and the relationship was much bigger than somebody knowing or not knowing that I knew what I was doing. So I would ask questions. Okay, you want us to ship to Japan? How do I do that? Where do I ship to? Who do you use? What happens? And I would just ask a lot of questions. And I wrote things down everywhere. Write it down. Okay, now learn from that one. Now next country, write it down. If shipping people came by, they would come by for 5 minutes to see if they could get the business. And I would have them sitting down for an hour. Well, what about this? Well, how do you do that? Well, what do you do? Asking questions. I'm so hungry for knowledge. So I just interviewed everybody and asked. And people are so kind, and they'd answer. And they would help. I never had somebody go, you know what, figure it out. And then when you figure it out, ship to me. They say, this is who we use. This is what we do. If you ask people with an open heart and you're really willing to listen, because many people will ask and then they'll start to explain to show you that they know. I needed to learn. So I just interviewed anybody around anything that I needed to do. And I'd always say, yes, I can do that order. Yes, I can ship to you. Can you tell me how?
That's such a valuable piece of advice because I think we often hear the opposite of that. The whole, fake it till you make it, act like you know the answers. And you waste so much time and energy where you could ask somebody, they could tell you, or you could spend the next 5 hours on Google trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But the ego won't allow you to let someone know that you don't know the answer. And so you burn all this energy and productivity.
Yeah, and the ego just doesn't pay your bills.
No.
I've never had my ego pay my bills. When I've had a great day and said, gosh, this is great, I haven't come home and ego's paid the bills. But they just haven't. It's the asking the questions and being, like Brene Brown says, you're not really truly brave until you are vulnerable.
Yes.
And if somebody chastised me, you know what? Okay, yes, I don't know. We both acknowledge that I don't know and perhaps I should know. So could you please answer my question? And then they'd answer the question. And the few people that wouldn't, you just walk around them. They're not part of your journey. You're just, okay, so you're stuck in that space. That's fine. I'm a very busy woman. I need to find out the answer. I'll go ask somebody else.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So we want to get into some rapid fire here. I told you we were going to do this. And the principle that this is built on is what I call the tail of the tape. And the premise behind it is that so often we spend so much time hindered by what we perceive as our weaknesses or the things that we lack, that we don't fully utilize our strengths. And so through the tail of the tape, I imagine a fight, and before, a boxing match starts, the announcer goes through, the tail of the tape. They look at each of the fighters. They're looking at their height. They're looking at their weight. They're looking at things that we wouldn't normally pay attention to, like the length of somebody's arms, the reach, the circumference of their wrists. Because if you were doing anything else in life, the circumference of your wrist probably wouldn't matter. But in boxing, it does. And so as you look at each fighter, you'll see their unfair competitive advantages shake out. So things that they didn't necessarily have to work at, it's just who they are. And all of us have our unfair competitive advantages also. And so I created a model called the tail of the tape to help us figure out what that is. And TAPE is an acronym that stands for talents, abilities, passions, and experiences. So we want to know Jane Spicer's tail of the tape. So let's start with the T, your talents. So what are those things that you're just naturally gifted at? You don't have to work at it. It just comes naturally for you.
Oh gosh, I don't know if I'm naturally gifted at anything. Other than I have a joy of life, and I think that joy of life leads into the things that I do well and that I don't do well. I love people. I love adventure. I love learning. So what I say about that is not necessarily when I say I don't know if I'm good at anything. It's not necessarily self-deprecating. It's hey, I'll try it. I'm willing to try just about anything. And I think that really helps. I don't have myself in a box with I can do this or I can't do that. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. Now that's certainly gotten me in trouble when I was younger. Yeah, I'll go. I'll do that. I'll jump in there. But it's also allowed me to be an adventurous, exploring business person. And I think that my children would say that I've taken them on some very non-traditional mom things. And my employees would also say the same thing. We do things in a different way here. As I explore life with joy and curiosity.
So let's talk about the A, your abilities. What are the things, and you've kind of alluded to this, but what are those things that you weren't naturally gifted at, but you've worked at them and they've become a clear strength for you?
Things that I wasn't. Initially, I was shy. So going and talking to people was really scary. It was really, really scary. And so to do that, I knew who I wanted to be. I had the picture of Jane version, 2018 or whatever it was. And sometimes as I got into it and dealt with some buyers that weren't as kind, I would have to role play. And that's where the fake it till you make it came in. And, as you'd mentioned earlier, and sometimes you have to and you can't, and sometimes you don't. I would go as the version of Jane. And that version of Jane is amazing, Aisha. She's well-dressed. She's smart. She's witty. She has the answers. She's confident. She's got a smile. And I would go in acting as if I was already that Jane. And just go in and just be her. I knew I was going to become her someday, but I would go in as that Jane I was going to grow into. And that helped me overcome shyness. That helped me overcome my fear of asking for a bigger order. It helped me overcome combatant customers or negotiating, because that Jane, that next version, she had it. She knew what to do. So as long as I was being that Jane, then I could overcome things. And bit by bit, I would realize that I would forget. I'd go into a meeting and I'd forget to kind of turn into that Jane because I had become her.
Wow, that's beautiful. Now let's talk about the P, your passions. What gets you really excited or makes you really angry?
What gets me excited is I love goals and meeting them, and I love seeing my team meet them. When I see people, when I can work with them and I can provide them with the opportunities, I can't take anybody to a goal, but if I could put all the opportunities there and they can make it and they can grow. I have employees that have been with me for 30 years, and I watch when they started with English as their second language, and then, now they're running a department and they can run all these machines and handle these people, and they're taking beautiful vacations, and that I provided that for them, that I'm so passionate about bringing them the opportunities to be the best person that they can. It brings me an extraordinary amount of joy, and I never get tired of it.
Now, this is probably the most important question here. It's real juicy. The E is for your experiences, and not your career experiences or your education, but what are the things that have happened in your life, good or bad, that have shaped the person that you are and the way you see the world and even the way you relate to people?
There have been a variety of things. If I look at myself truly and honestly, I'm a series of scars. And those scars have made me stronger. So, losing my mom at an early age and saying, okay, now I'm running this company that's growing rapidly with an infant on my hip. It's like, wow, if I can do that, then I can do something else. Looking at my children and realizing that they are these incredible human beings and wanting to model my best self. So when you wake up and you feel terrible and things are hard and life is rough and business isn't going well, and this person's looking at you and you have the choice. I'd look and go, well, I've got the choice to just be a victim and go, oh, poor me. Or I have the choice to go, you know what, we've got this. And then when I said that, Aisha, I had to have it because I never wanted to misrepresent to my children. So they have given me more fuel and passion to just be a better me every day.
What advice, and this is the last question, what is, and you've given us such nuggets here, not even nuggets, you've given us like big boulders that we got to climb up under because they are so good and meaty. But if you had to leave people with one piece of advice or one thing that they cannot forget, what would that be?
Be kind. Be kind. You can be wildly successful and still be kind. But it's super, super important. Be kind. Don't miss the opportunity to be kind. Don't miss that moment. Whether it's a customer that's having a hard time and you extend them a little bit more credit, or the mom with the stroller that can't get it up the steps, so you're helping with the stroller. That ripple effect of giving some kindness, do nothing, and it's so hugely important. And I've seen more people react better or more deeply from kindness. Some of the long-term customers I have are because my mom did something kind for them many, many, many years ago, and they never forgot it. So don't do it for the result. Do it because we need to be kind, period.
Wow. And I tell you, and now more than ever, we need more kindness in this world. No
Amen.
matter who you are or what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing so much of yourself in this conversation. And I know that folks listening got exactly what they needed from this.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been an honor to be on your podcast and really a pleasure. And you've asked some great questions. So you've caused me to think too. And I appreciate it, Aisha.
Be sure to subscribe to On Purpose with Aisha Codborn and leave a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you listen. For links to the resources mentioned and previous episodes, visit onpurposepodcast.com.